Hello and welcome to the Inside Stylist podcast, where we talk all about interiors with interviews with interior stylists, writers and the fabulous homeware brands that make a house a home. I also catch up with industry experts in the know and get them to share all their knowledge and advice. There's so much to talk about. I'm your host, Emma Morton-Turner, an interior stylist and writer with a ton of experience. I set up InsideStylist.com so I can share all that interiors love with you. So don't forget to head on over to the website for not only the show notes from today's episode, but regular interior blog posts and a whole host of inspiration. But for now, enjoy the show. So we are here at Jo Thornhill's book launch for her brand new book, My Bedroom as an Office and Other Interior Design Dilemmas. We're going to be talking about Jo's book. Thank you, Jo, for letting me record this podcast today. Let's talk about what the book's about for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
Yes. So, My Bedroom is an Office and Other Interior Design Dilemmas is the long title. And it's essentially kind of a bite-sized Q&A full of loads of specific answers, tips and tricks on an array of interior design dilemmas, including what to do if your bedroom is an office, but other dilemmas.
Yes. So basically, if you were to look at the book, it has a lot of very large images, and one page is 1 to 3 images, and then you've got the answer to a specific question. I'm flicking through. So they are all really kind of for everybody. So people who are into interiors and might have a problem that they haven't thought about how to deal with it, or to people who are just new to, bought their first home and they're not quite sure how to get around lots of different dilemmas. So I'm going to do like a 8-ball thing. I'm just going to open a page up and read one of the dilemmas. So that's not a dilemma. My kitchen is my living space. That's my dream. Like, knock through and have one big space. So it's kind of like how to make that work. I'm just going to give a few examples so people can kind of get an idea of what it's about. Actually, every time I've opened it up, we've kind of got a splashing the cash, where to invest and where to save. So there's lots of added information as well as the questions.
It's kind of peppered with, we kind of refer to them as breakout spreads. So in between the single Q&A pages, there's kind of a more in-depth look at various things. So splashing the cash is about what to invest, what to save, and it gives 5-6 different examples. And then there's other ones on how to use colour sort of harmoniously, tonally, and the other one contrastingly.
So covering all bases.
Yes. So they kind of, so the book isn't in chapters. It's all these individual spreads, but these kind of breakout pages sort of do the job of a sort of chapter end, really. So break up the book.
Brilliant. So I'm going to read a couple more just so you get a gist for it. So I've chosen a neutral scheme. How can I jazz it up without resorting to colour? Or what can I do with my unused fireplace? Or how do I combine different tones of wooden furniture? Which is really topical at the moment, actually. Yes. Really topical.
Yes.
It'd be like, the trends, wouldn't it?
Almost.
Listen to part 1. So how did it come about? How did you come to author this book?
Yes, so the publishers, Laurence King, had previously published a book called My Garden is a Car Park. Yes, it's just double checking the title, which followed the same kind of Q&A format, and it was doing quite well in sales, and they thought that the concept could be applied to interiors. So they approached me to potentially write it. And although they approached me, I did still have to, after we had our initial meeting, I did still go back and write a proposal for it in the same way that any new author would do. So that was just kind of outlining how I saw the book working, who it would be targeted at, a few kind of example questions, a few example images of the sort of style that I saw it being in, and then I just kind of sold myself at the end a little bit. So even though they knew my background and what I'd done before, like my old book Home for Now was where they found me, I still kind of did a little kind of me sales pitch.
Yeah.
Just sort of like...
So they know they've got the right person.
Yes, basically, yeah.
So you didn't shoot all of the images, you shot some of them, is that right?
Well, technically, no, I didn't shoot any of the images. They're all from various sources, but a couple of the images in there happen to be ones that I styled, but they weren't styled for the book. They've been used again for this book. So everything is either from an image library or some of them are bloggers' images. They've come from a real mixture of different kind of places, and I wanted them to have quite an organic sort of authentic feel to them. I felt if everything was sort of just from an image library, it might feel a bit stark and unloved. And I think generally,
not real.
Yeah, exactly. I think generally speaking, the kind of images you do get in image libraries are the sort of lovely big houses where people have spent a bit of money that are beautiful images but are perhaps a bit unattainable. So I thought it was quite important to get a real mix of genuine people's homes in there as well, albeit lovely ones, but still kind of with that real element to it.
And did you have, like, were you involved in the sourcing the images and choosing what went where, or like kind of what images you were finding for different dilemmas?
Yeah, I had a lovely picture editor work on the book called Caroline Rowland, who also is the founder of 91 magazine, which is a really lovely online magazine.
Oh, in fact, I just saw, because she just talked about that in a recent blog post about how she worked on the book.
Yes. Yeah, so she was the picture editor on the book, which I was very pleased about. I was going to suggest her for it, and she coincidentally contacted the publishers to say, do you have any books coming up?
Oh, brilliant.
And they contacted me to say, do you know this person? I was like, she's on my list. I was going to tell her to contact her. Exactly. So that worked out very well. So I sort of worked out pretty much, I worked out the content for all of the pages, and then worked out, so what images do I need for each page? I knew each page was going to need between 1 to 3 images because of how the layout was already preordained layout. And so I would brief her on what sort of thing I wanted, and then she would go away and come back with loads of options for me. And then we had sort of a little kind of Dropbox shared system where we'd siphon things into the different folders of yes, maybe, no, all that kind of thing. And so it went from there really. So I found some of the images I found or suggested, but it all kind of went through her, and so that's kind of how it all came to be. So the couple of images of mine that are in there are kind of coincidence.
Yeah.
That is me.
So do you find the images first and then come up with the questions, or how do you kind of have an idea of the questions that you think you find the dilemmas first and then find images to correspond, or do you kind of make it work across both? Because coming from an interiors background, you know what people are looking for.
Yes. I worked, just because of the logistics of how it was going to work, I had to have the questions in mind before I could brief her, because it's such a specific book. There's obviously certain images that could work against an array of questions, but there's a lot of specific ones like painted tiles and tile stickers and things like that. So I needed to know in advance what kind of things I was going to need. So it generally came about that way. Sometimes if I kind of saw nice images along the way, I might sort of earmark them and think, oh, that might be good for something else. Or other times she'd suggest images for one page and I'd say, oh, I don't think that's right for this page, but that'd be really good for this other page. And we'd swap things around and stuff. But it was generally the copy led the images.
Yeah. So who is the book aimed at?
I think it's aimed, I'm hoping that we'll have quite a broad range. My hope is that it will be useful for people who aren't necessarily interiors lovers or Instagram, Pinterest fanatics. I'm hoping that it will just be, as well as those people, your sort of everyday normal people who perhaps haven't really thought much about interiors before, but maybe they've just bought their first house, or they've moved in with a partner or new flat share, and they're sort of looking for ideas, or they're sort of wondering things that they'd never thought before, and also just tap into the growing number of people that are sort of, entering their 20s, 30s, 40s, sort of still renting or still on their kind of first home and kind of working their way up. There's kind of a growing number of people that renting or first homes aren't just sort of a short-term transient thing anymore. It's almost kind of like a way of life, and so I think there's so many more people now that are sort of trying to make the most of these rental spaces rather than it just being like digs for a couple of years type of thing. It's kind of like, well, I'm going to be living this way for a while, so I want to, even though I don't own it, I want to make the effort to make it nice, or whatever it might be. So.
Yeah, there's a name for it, isn't it? Rent Nation or something?
There's
there's a name for the rental.
Generation Rent?
Generation Rent, there you go, that's the one. I'll tell you one of the dilemmas that I read, because when I get a new book to read, I sit and read it while I'm having my cornflakes, and I literally will go through each one, and then one of them was about your TV, and you painted behind the TV black so that the TV blended into that kind of corner, and it's almost like it's invisible.
Yes.
I thought that was genius.
Yes.
Love that.
Yeah, no, it's worked quite well. I mean, our whole living room is painted the same dark colour, but I sort of strategically did it knowing that the TV was going to be there, so you don't really see it when it's off. It's just...
because it's like, in the magazine world, we never have TVs in the shop, but in the real world, we've all got them, and they're getting bigger and bigger, so it's like...
Yeah, and I think I sort of allude to that on the page. I think I did say, like, as a stylist, we're never to show TVs and toilets. You can't ever show either of them.
Lids
it's the cardinal
down.
oh god, yes. So they're never seen, but yet everybody has them.
Yeah.
And then people are like, but what do I do with them? Well, the TV, I suppose the toilet's self-explanatory, but yes. Yes, so it's it blends in nicely.
So the book came out a couple of weeks ago, but you finished all of your work on it about a year ago, because books are quite a much slower process than magazines and the things that we're normally styling and stuff. But how long did it take for you to, like, from being commissioned to literally sending off the last page? How long did that take?
Yeah, it was quite a long, slow process. So I was first in meetings with Laurence King as back in sort of October time 2016, when we were first talking about it, and then I think it got sort of the green light to go ahead January 2017, and then I spent the bulk of that year, amongst doing other things as well, it's not kind of full time, but the bulk of that year was spent working out the blad, which is basically a kind of 8-10 page sort of preview of the book. So we've got the front cover, the contents page, and kind of like 3 or 4 example spreads in the book to give just to give people an idea of what the finished book is going to be like. So spent quite a lot of time working on that, and then once that was off, it was sort of filling in the blanks of the other pages, and that kind of, so I think my final copy was handed in sort of January 2018, and then the first half of 2018 was then really working on the images, so that we'd had images together for the blad, but then it was getting the images in place for the whole book. And then I had to write the copy. Each image has a caption, which obviously I couldn't do that until the images were confirmed, so it was then kind of going back in and doing that, and then also doing the resource pages, which are sort of several pages at the back, just kind of where to find various things that I talk about in the book. And obviously I had to do that at the end as well to make sure that that was the most relevant to what was in the final edit. So, and then I think it went off to the printers, must have been sort of autumny time 2018. So yeah,
it's like
4 months on the slow ship.
Little hits of writing and research.
Yes.
In amongst working on other projects and other styling jobs.
There's always kind of flurries of busyness, especially towards the end of getting the copy in, because I had such a long time.
I was going to say, do you have? I'm rubbish without a deadline. Do you have like little interim deadlines? So deadline to get the images, deadline to get the copy, that sort of thing.
That's what would have been a sensible thing to do. But no, there was.
Did they just go, off you go? You go right.
Well, I think there were kind of certain deadlines, but they were all kind of quite
movable?
Long. You kind of were a little bit movable, but also kind of quite a long way away.
Yeah. I would be useless with that. I would have been doing that like the night before I had to be handed in. 400 pages or whatever it is.
Definitely did that. There was quite a lot of colour-coded organisational documents being created by me.
Very cool.
To avoid actually writing anything some of the time. But yeah, it kind of all worked out in the end. And once you're sort of in the flow of it, it's just kind of when you suddenly have to have a break for a few weeks to do a big shoot, and then you sort of forget where you were. So it can be quite disruptive in that sense. But at the same time, you couldn't literally just sit and do that for sort of 4 months non-stop.
No. So you kind of block out a day to do X amount of pages and just kind of focus on that, and then...
Yeah, that's what I was kind of more towards the end, when it was kind of the blueprint was all there, and it was just kind of fill in the blanks. And for every page, I sort of, before I wrote anything, I knew what I wanted to write for each page. So often it was just fleshing it out. So yeah, towards the end, I was just able to be like, I'm going to do these 5 pages today, and however I sort of worked it out. But at the start, it was more, there's so much planning in advance. It was sort of very planned, and the actual writing was kind of almost the very last little bit.
Yeah, it's like a shoot, isn't it? It's all in the prep and the logistics, and then once you actually get to the styling bit, it's like you've done all the hard work. You can just flow.
Yes.
So what advice would you give to other stylists and writers who would like to do a book?
So I think I'm very...
This book, you have, as we've just said, you've kind of done the writing and the gathering the images, but your other book, you actually did the styling as well. So you've kind of experienced both, haven't you? So Home for Now was, you styled it and wrote it, and then this book you've kind of found the images and written it. So you've seen 2 different elements. So I'll let you answer now.
Yeah. So I think I was quite lucky with Home for Now. My first book, I'd already done styling work for that publisher's house, styling craft projects and things for other people's books. So I did have a contact there that way, and I was able to say, I've kind of got this idea, and that was Home for Now, and obviously that worked out. So
did you do a book proposal for that, or
yes.
did you just kind of say, I've got an idea, and then they said, put it together, we want to see it?
Well, yeah, initially I did just sort of bat over an email with a couple of paragraphs, and it was just quite, I kind of got an idea, would it be nice to do something about renters, because I'm in a rental, and all that kind of stuff.
Are you still in a rental?
No, not now.
Oh,
I was then.
Yeah.
We were still renting then. Yeah. So after I'd so after I'd sort of emailed them that idea, they said, that sounds quite interesting, could you just put together just a simple Word document with a few pictures, how it might be, which I did, and then they kind of commissioned it from there, really. But I think it did help that they knew my sort of styling and sort of felt obviously comfortable that I'd be able to do the job. But I mean, I think people can sort of be a bit put off thinking, I need to create some masterful document and have a really thorough plan and spend like weeks and months thoroughly researching this thing. I think in essence, as long as what the publishers are looking for is sort of a good idea, a good clear idea, something that's a bit different to what's already been done before, to be able to see how you could achieve that and to know that you have the skills to do it. And again, it's not even that you necessarily have to be a really great writer or anything, it's because they have editors. It's kind of very much just about a really clear concept, really, and proving that you can make them think you can do it.
Yeah. So people need to just get their ideas out there, send some ideas over to people, make sure it's original.
Yes.
So we have actually had some questions come in about a book, which we've kind of spoken to the publishers about, but we can kind of talk about it because I know you've spoken to them and you know a lot of the answers as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read out these questions and then we'll just go through them. There's not a ton of them. So what trends are you noticing in publishing right now? What topics or genres seem to be doing well or not so well, both within interiors and non-fictions? So what they came back with is plants, veganism. Veganism is just everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just mainstream now. You can get it in like Pizza Express and places, can't you?
Corner shop.
Yeah, how to make your life and surroundings better.
I think Laurence King do quite a lot of this sort of, I guess, like kind of under £10 type books that are...
You can talk, we've got an audience. You can talk and you can laugh out loud, people. I'm quite happy to say the wrong thing.
So I think a lot of the kind of sort of, I guess you'd call them like kind of bite-sized books. So I think there's one that they've got at the moment is it How to Be Insta Famous or something like that, which is, I think, kind of sort of dip in, bit of fun.
Yeah.
You can sit and read it in an afternoon. Giftable price, under 10 quid type of thing.
So pocket money pricing
sort
of thing.
Yeah, sort of the things that you'd see, I guess, sort of near the tills of bookshops.
Yeah, okay. So they've also said it's no longer enough that a book has a lot of nice pictures in it. It has to work hard to give the reader something that other books don't. It needs to have practical advice or new content. Perhaps unexpectedly, books based on social media platforms have been doing very well.
Yes, like the Insta.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For example, read this if you want to be Instagram famous. The internet has not replaced printed books.
Yes.
Hurrah.
Good for me.
Yes. And then the next one is, with regards to topics that have done well lately, do you have a couple of specific examples and thoughts on why they've worked? I.e. the Joanna Basford colouring books seem to hit on a zeitgeist due to an increased interest in mindfulness and mental well-being. So this kind of colouring in trend has been really growing, hasn't it?
Yes, and I think the Joanna Basford books, they were sort of one of the first. I think they started quite a while ago, didn't they? The first.
She started them herself, didn't she? And then she drew them out for herself, and then it just got picked up by you guys. Was it you guys?
I think she had the illustrations, and the commission editor found Joanna, and then that became.
Yes, and then now it's just massive, isn't it? The whole mindfulness colouring in.
Yeah, I think that was obviously sort of a really good example of hitting on something that suddenly is now kind of massive, and everyone talks about it and knows about it. But sort of 10 years ago, or however long ago it was sort of like, what? Colouring in for grown-ups?
Yeah. Another big trend in publishing at the moment is books for adults and children featuring inspirational women. I love this. This is that whole...
the Amelia Pankhurst.
Yeah, love it.
Who's one, Doctor Who? Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks, yeah.
Looking at him.
Doctor Who.
Looking at the geek in the room.
which is really lovely actually. It's that whole, it's like not the mindfulness, but it's that whole empowering women,
Yes.
but empowering young women to believe they can be anything they want to be,
Yes.
I suppose. And then someone asked, how do you predict what sort of books will be the next big thing? And the publisher said, if I knew that, I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere. I love that. What do you look for in a book submission, and what should some supplier when pitching something? So it's kind of what you were just saying there, isn't it? And they've said clarity, clarity, clarity. So it's like, I thought it would have to be a whole big proposal with everything in it all in one go. And actually, from what you're saying, people just, I suspect it's like when someone gets sent a CV, they don't want to read through pages, they just want a snippet of what it is, and if you're interested, you go back for more and you speak to people, don't you?
Well, I think so we were talking in the last podcast about the trend reports I write for WGSN, and that for me has been a really interesting exercise in that, because I need to produce pages that you can look at that page and it's got 6-7 images on it, and you can see what that trend is for that page, and you can flick through the sort of 7-8 page reports, and you almost, like the commissioners there always said to me that the copy should be to sort of clarify what's on the page, but you should be able to understand that trend report without any words at all. So it's not a very literal example for the book, but it's kind of that thing of, I think the publishers need to be able to just sort of give it a skim and just be like, I can understand how this is a book, I can understand how this would work, I can see the style of it within very little content, really. Because I suppose everyone's busy people, they must get hundreds of submissions all the time. If it's sort of something that you need to really spend half an hour trying to understand, then I suppose if they don't understand it, how's a customer going to understand it?
If it's complicated before you even read anything, it's like...
And I mean, obviously, if it's a proposal, it's not going to be 100% polished. It will be worked on, but I think the essence has to be, okay, I suppose you need to sort of... It's the elevator pitch thing, isn't it? I guess you need to be able to sort of sum it up in 2 minutes, really.
Yeah. If your chosen subject is well covered, you must think of a new way to approach it and present it. Otherwise, how will a book compete with all others out there? Which is really interesting, actually, because interiors is a really saturated market. But actually, like, for example, your first book was about renting, and it was completely new, and it was a different take on it. But actually, as someone who doesn't rent, I still got a lot out of it. There was so much, like, information in there. It was kind of really good ideas. It wasn't just... And it's like when we said a minute ago, it has to work really hard. It does work really hard. So
because I wanted that the sort of the aim of that book was to sort of target renters as well as first-time buyers, but also people that maybe you are in a sort of a more permanent situation, but perhaps say you can't afford to do your dream knock through kitchen, dining, whatever, but what can you do that's going to cost a small amount of money and take a weekend that you can make your kitchen that bit nicer for the next couple of years until you can afford that. So I think things have to have a niche and a target, but it does have to sort of it can't be, I guess, too exclusive as to exclude everybody that doesn't fit into that group.
And last question, I think. Does a polished presentation of previous writing experience matter, or is it more about showing you have a really great concept or idea with the expertise to create it? So I think you kind of half answered that already. It is about really good ideas, really clear and concise ideas, but good writing skills are always a plus, which is what the publishers said. But if your area is strong and you really know your subject and you've got good contacts in that field, most publishers can help with the editing. Hoorah! A well thought out and confident presentation or proposal always helps. They suggest you do your research, see what competition is out there, what kinds of reviews do these books get on Amazon, do you see them in bookshops or other shops, and research the publisher that you're approaching. Is your idea or chosen subject and your approach right for that publisher? Would it fit comfortably with the rest of their output? That's actually really interesting, because Emily Dorr did a book on papercraft, and it's a company that publishes just craft books. So actually it was perfect for her. It's like any form of craft, that is what they do. They don't do anything like the books that you do. So it's actually, if she'd have brought that book to Laurence King, it might not have been right. The same if you've taken your books to that publisher, it wouldn't have been right. So it's like absolutely key to make sure the publisher does exactly what you're into. And one final tip from the publisher: make sure you correctly spell the name of the publisher that you are approaching. Well, If you can't even spell the name of the publisher, you're in trouble, aren't you?
Yeah, it shouldn't need saying, but
No, it shouldn't,
it really
but I bet.
does. I bet.
This has been really, really educational. It's made me want to write a book now. Maybe style a book, maybe more style than write.
I'll write it.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's a great idea. Let's team up.
Let's do it.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yes. I do.
Go.
What was the biggest dilemma you faced when you were doing it your own home?
Ooh.
And is your bedroom an office?
Our office is a spare bedroom. It's not our bedroom, but I used to have a desk. My bedroom used to be my office. We used to have. We had quite a big bedroom when we were living in a shared rental, and so I stuck a dining table right in the corner.
A dining table in your bedroom?
Yeah, it was like.
I don't think that's a dilemma. That's good.
It was pretty good. It was quite a bizarrely big room, but yeah. So we were quite lucky that we were able to do that. I think the biggest dilemma in doing up our house was, in a way, it was kind of me switching from the mindset of being a renter to being a homeowner, because obviously I'd always previously looked at things of, there's only so much I can change. Any changes I do have to be really superficial. And so I was kind of quite limiting myself, thinking like, I don't really like this built-in cupboard, so can I stick some wallpaper on it or something? And then I had to think to myself, but I could just take out this cupboard. It doesn't need to be there anymore. So certain things I did kind of make do and make around, but other things I did kind of make quite big changes. And I think it was having the confidence to do that, because even though I worked on loads of photo shoots, obviously, and I'm sort of, I guess it was kind of walking the walk as well as talking the talk, and sort of being brave and being like, okay, we're going to knock out this room and do all these quite big, not expensive, but not pennies decisions.
Yeah.
So it was kind of believing, practicing what I preach really, and being brave.
I think sometimes it's really hard with what we do. You see so many new wallpapers, new colours. You see all this new stuff all the time, and it's almost like you want to do a new colour or a new look every 5 minutes. Every season you see new stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, actually, I have to live with this for, maybe 3 years. I don't know. 3 years is about my max.
Yeah,
But
I think as well, because we're so exposed to, I can think of like 10,000 really cool wallpapers that I love in my house, and then you almost become paralysed with, I guess it's the opposite of a lot of people that are sort of coming into interiors that haven't really done anything, done up houses or anything before, kind of like, where do I start? I was almost like, where do I draw the line?
Yeah, where do you stop?
Where do I how do I filter this out? How do I choose one wallpaper when I want 10,000?
Did you? I can't remember exactly what happened, but you had, when you were doing your hallway, and didn't you pull off old wallpaper and you found amazing wallpaper underneath?
Yes.
And were you going to wallpaper and then you didn't because of what you found in this this Victorian house? Isn't it?
It's Victorian. So we found with the builders, we got the builders in to replaster because we knew that the walls were, we knew that the textured wallpaper was holding the whole house up. So we got the builders in to do it, and then we'd gone away and they were sending me WhatsApp pictures of like, we found this like scabby old wallpaper underneath, so we're going to plaster over that tomorrow. And I was like, no, stop. Don't do it. So I had to sort of put a halt to everything and race back, and then we salvaged like a section on one wall, and that's still there in all its Victorian brown glory.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. It's been brilliant. I'm very inspired. I think it's a huge feat to do one book, let alone two, and all the effort that goes in behind it is mind-boggling. I think Joe Public probably doesn't realise quite what is involved in it, and
they're quite beasts to do.
Yeah, doing small features are quite big in themselves.
Yes.
So doing a whole book is mammoth.
It's like 5 magazines all in one go.
Yeah, on your own.
On your own.
No, it's brilliant. Well, thank you very much. I wish you every success with it. I know it's already doing really, really well. So well done, Joe. Thank you for your time. Thank you everyone for coming. Thanks for listening to the Inside Stylist podcast. You'll find all the details from today's show over on the show notes at insidestylist.com. If you enjoy the show, I'd love it if you would head on over to iTunes and rate and review it. It's the best way to help other people find the show, and I'd really appreciate it. Until next time, bye for now.